All right, hello everybody, and welcome to my first trading video. My name is James. I am a 26-year-old trader in Florida. I began trading in November of 2019, and I have a Robinhood account, a small Robinhood account that is a margin account that I use for options, and then I have a E-Trade account that is a cash account that I use for shares specifically, primarily stocks under $10, penny stocks, and low float stocks. If you don't know the difference between a cash account and a margin account, if you have any questions about that, feel free to reach out or leave a comment, and I'll be happy to explain that further. But those are the two accounts that I'm dealing with now because low float stocks and penny stocks are my main priority, but I did want to get into options a little bit because I do see the potential there. And some days there's not many low float runners, if any, or the penny stocks and OTCs are just a little dry. So I just kind of wanted to add another tool into my trading. So today I did take an option on Microsoft, and I'll bring up this email here is just a confirmation from Robinhood. So at 9:39 this morning, I placed my order for a $302.50 call for next Friday, August 27th, 2021 at $230 for the contract. Today is August 20th, 2021. And so we'll get into the chart here. I got executed on the play right around here on this retest of VWAP. I did enter it right here and got a little worried I was going to get left behind as it kind of went through VWAP and I didn't get executed. Luckily, it did come back and retest it. I got executed, and then it took off for me pretty nicely. But we'll go out to the daily just to kind of see what I was looking at here. This Microsoft has been uptrending for quite a while now, especially a nice few months here that it's had. A big green candle yesterday. It's had some news coming out. It got an analyst upgrade to a $350 price target, which I don't recommend just buying a stock because it has an analyst upgrade. Sometimes those analysts have their own agendas. Maybe they've got a big share or a big stake in the company, and they're looking to unload their stock onto, a bunch of new buyers that see their upgrades. You never know with those, but it did have a lot of other news coming out, and the upgrade only helped it. So I did like that, and I really liked the $300 level that we were approaching. That's a really nice round number that attracts a lot of traders. So if we get back here to the intraday, we can see yesterday it had a nice move from about 290, and it topped out around 297.50 towards the end of the day. So coming into the open today, for anyone that doesn't know, you cannot trade options in pre-market or after hours. So I was just watching this, hoping for a dip down to this 297.50 level. That was an ideal entry for me. Unfortunately, we did not dip all the way down there. We got to 298, a little above that, and then turned. So once we crossed VWAP, I decided to place the entry, or my trade there for entry, and like I said, got executed right back on this retest here, and it took off pretty nicely, started working right away for me here. That's a pretty good move on an option. I think I was up about $100 right here on this second big green candle. Then we did have this pullback of about $1.50 the next minute, which did almost shake me out. I sat back for a minute and just kind of, realized the big move that we had made on a stock like Microsoft with such a large market cap. That is a pretty significant move right out of the open. So I figured we had a little bit more momentum still coming in. I was willing to let it test this 302 level, and I might have even let it test VWAP. But by the time I had kind of sat back and thought about all of that, it had already kind of, found its bottom and was starting to trend back upwards and didn't even go below 302. And so then you can see it's coming back to 304 here. It hit a little resistance, but got through that pretty easily, and 304 started acting as support. And what I was really keyed on is this $305 level. That's something that plays into kind of the lower float, lower price stocks that I like to play. I key in on $half whole dollar levels, so 50 cents and $1. Then when they come to these $100 to $300 stocks, those kind of go to $5 and $10 levels. So I was keyed in on that 305, and to see if we could break that, and then if it would act as support for us for the rest of the day for another push. And we did get through it, but it didn't really act as any support at all. It was kind of just chopping back and forth over and under it, which wasn't exactly what I was looking for. So I did put in my exit order right here. I believe it was at 1023. We'll just pull up. Yes, so at 1023, I put in my order to sell the contract at $510. So I got it at 230, selling for 510 for a $280 profit, which is awesome, over 100% winner. Can't expect that out of every option. This one just worked really well for me, really quickly out of the gate. And like I said, I was hoping that 305 level would act as a support, and once it just didn't seem to be holding 305 very well, I decided it was a good time to get out. We have seen recently in this market that this 10:30, 11 o'clock window, you do see a lot of trend reversals. So stocks that have been going up tend to kind of downtrend a little bit or just consolidate. And the other way around, stocks that kind of, go down right out of the open, they have a bit of a bounce around 10:30, 11. And that's due to, I believe, a lot of day traders that just trade full time. If you're up big on the day, or if you're making money on the day and it's 10:30, 11 o'clock, might as well lock in your profits and go about your day, because this midday action for, not just Microsoft today, but for a lot of stocks, the volume kind of dries up a little bit, as you can see here. Dries up, and a lot of stuff just kind of chops sideways until you get into this like 2 to 4 o'clock window, power hour as it's referred to oftenly. Things kind of pick back up a little bit. So that weighed into my decision as well, just approaching this 10:30, 11 o'clock window. 305 wasn't acting as support, so I got out, and in hindsight, it was a pretty good exit. And Microsoft did honor VWAP pretty well. For anyone that doesn't know, VWAP stands for volume weighted average price. So basically is some sort of formula, I don't know the exact details of it, that weighs in the amount of trades that come in, the volume, with the price of those trades. And I just look at it very simply. If a stock is above VWAP, that means that the majority of buyers are in the money. They're good. It's a bullish symbol. If a stock is below VWAP, that means that a lot of buyers are down on their money, shorts are in control, and it's a bullish signal. So Microsoft, as you can see, it did test VWAP a few times and bounced off of it nicely. These can be nice entry points for you if you're looking to take it the rest of the day. Similarly, how I was looking to exit around this 10:30, 11 window, I don't typically look to enter trades between 11 and 2 o'clock too often, but these were nice, dips that you could have got into and for quick trades, or even just to hold. And this is setting up, or it did set up really nicely for a potential swing. We'll see what it does on Monday. I did think about re-entering it. I do really like these setups where a stock is at 52-week highs like Microsoft is, above VWAP, and just kind of consolidating right above it. You do see a lot of continuation and gap ups off of a setup like this, but I had such a nice trade off of it today. Honestly, I was just happy with that and decided just to let it go, and we'll see what happens on Monday. Maybe it has a week open and I'll play a red to green move on it Monday morning. Who knows? We'll see what's happening in pre-market on Monday, but that was my trade on it today. And then I had one other trade that I was looking at. My main watch was GRNQ here. So we got a nice pump in pre-market, right to about 148 here, 147, 148. And then kind of died back down. Once again, this was honoring VWAP as well, but these sketchy, low-priced penny stocks, they are much more susceptible just to drop through VWAP and not honor it quite as much as something like Microsoft would. So if we pull up, I have these orders here on E-Trade. You can see I tried to enter it twice in pre-market at 927 and 929 for $1.31 and $1.33 each. I canceled both of those pretty quickly, just because after I put them in, they kind of went up like a cent or two, and then I could just see the resistance there that they weren't gonna, it didn't look like it was gonna spike out of the open. That's something that kind of just comes with, experience, watching the open often, watching the level 2 and the bids and asks kind of stack up. So I canceled both of those and was looking for a dip buy at the open. I was risking 125 here, so I was kind of looking for something really close to 125, if not buying on 125. If it cracked below 125 and I was in the trade, I would have just got out at 124, hopefully, right when it cracked. And you can see it hit 127 on these two candles. That's the bottom of them. Over here kind of shows the low of every candle that I'm on. So 127 and 127. And if we come back to E-Trade here, you can see at 9:32, I did put in an order to buy 500 shares at 128. Unfortunately, did not get executed at 128. Right when it on this big green candle here, I was a little disappointed about that. The spike did fail. Eventually, it only hit 145, I believe, and came back down. But this just kind of highlights the importance of a good entry and a strong risk reward entering a trade. So just a quick breakdown of that. A 128 entry right here. If I cut below 125 at 124, I'm only losing 4 cents a share. So that's a $20 loss on 500 shares, which isn't that bad. And from 128 to 145, that's a 17-cent gain. Only risking 4 cents a share. That's a good 4-cent risk reward. I was actually hoping that I was going to test 148, the pre-market high, and test 150. So I was really looking at trying to get like a 20-cent gain out of it, and that would have been a 5-to-1 risk reward level there. I do tend to kind of scale out of stocks, so if I got those 500, I probably would have sold 50 to 100 coming up into the 140s here. I would not have top ticked it at 145, but I probably would have got the majority of mine out, up in this area here and held on to some for that 150 and then kind of cut them right there. But if you do chase it to that like 131, 132 level, which I thought about doing, which is where my pre-market orders was, if we go back to that risk reward ratio, now, a 132 entry, if you cut that at 124, you're risking 8 cents. And if you have, even just a 3-to-1 risk reward instead of that 5-to-1 that I had at 128, you're still looking for 24 cents of upside from 132. So that puts you at 156, which this did not come close to on the initial spike here. And then you're losing 8 cents a share. So then, you're taking a $40 loss on just something that's not a great setup, because you're hoping of a break of these pre-market highs and getting through that 150 level just for that 3-to-1 risk reward. I did stop watching this because I was in Microsoft and I missed my entry, so I didn't want to FOMO into it, so I kind of closed out of it pretty quickly after I got into Microsoft, and I didn't actually see this turn here. To be honest, this is not really a pattern I would have looked for. I probably wouldn't have played this at all. And it did get a little bit of a spike and a halt and came out of the halt and went up, and then as you can see, it just crashed and faded the rest of the day and is at 76 cents now at the end of the day here. So it just highlights the importance of risk reward, and if you miss your entries, sometimes you just have to let it go. You can sit back and try to come up with another plan. Maybe if it gets through 150 and then consolidates at 150, you can look for an entry there or something, but you can't just chase up a stock as it's breaking out. If you miss it the first time, that's how you get yourself in some quick trouble there. I do have one other trade to go over here. PMCB was actually from Wednesday of this week. And I got into this. Let's see, we'll bring up E-Trade again. So I got into this at $7.99 for just 100 shares. Most of my exits here, some at 8.20 even, 8.30 up to 8.50. And what happened here was I tried to get in right at $6. It didn't dip all the way down to $6. It turned at 6.08, so I missed that initial entry, which really stunk. It went up and then it ended up halting here for a second. And when it came out of the halt, I kind of just gave it a couple minutes to make up its mind. As you saw with GRNQ, that came out of a halt, spiked, and then faded really hard. So I tried to give things a few minutes out of a halt to really see where they're going to go. And then when we had all of this consolidation right here, I entered at $7.99 and sold most of mine right into, this spike here, just into these general candles. And once it got through 850, I was holding 30 shares for a test of $9. So when I buy 100 shares, I typically sell them out in pieces of 10 just to lock in some profits, but then to still keep a chunk of them in case it continues to run. But if it does turn against me, like you see this big red candle here, luckily I was all out of my trade at that point. But at least, if I did have some shares, if you're taking 10 off at a time into these little spikes, say this does turn on you, you have 30 or 40 shares and you cut it for a loss, maybe you're just break even or a little bit green instead of completely red on on the entire trade. And PMCB, this came into play because of, I decided to take it out of the halt because of VRPX here, which was a very similar setup the day before. As you can see, similar price action, a little bit above 6, didn't come down to 6, halted right out of the open and ran up to 10, consolidated a little bit, downtrended a little bit, and then just broke out and went crazy. After hours went all the way up into the 20s from $6, $8, and even the next day we can see up to a high of $36 pre-market. It got through 36. So that's why I decided to enter PMCB after that initial halt and just kind of hoping for a similar movement. PMCB does have a larger float than VRPX does. It's about a 22 million float, I think, whereas this is only like a $2 or $3 million float. That's basically the amount of shares that are available to trade. If you have any questions about that, feel free to reach out, and I'd be happy to go more in depth about that. The main, but since this did, gap up so much, I'm now holding a bag of PMCB, unfortunately, because I did enter it right around here at 866. Only 10 shares, thankfully, because I knew this trade was not an ideal setup, and I just was kind of getting greedy because of what happened with VRPX that I got left out of. But if you take a look at the daily chart here of PMCB, you can see it has spiked huge in the past. It usually is holding up around these $6 levels. So when I did enter that swing, I thought, maybe if it does go down, it'll just go down to, 657. I'll lose, $15 off 10 shares. Not a big deal. But VRPX, if we pull up this yearly chart, you can see this has nothing, this is a clear breakout. There's no overhead resistance. There's no bag holders selling into spikes. It's just all momentum buyers. Everyone's in the green. Everyone's making money. And in the after hours here, it spikes above its daily high. It holds above the daily high the whole time and then gaps up. And ultimately kind of fades that day, but you're still, if you buy in after hours at any time, you're green pretty much all day here anyway. Whereas PMCB, if we compare the two, which I did before I entered, and I entered anyway, just ignored the red flags here, all of that overhead resistance, and we had this quick spike at the beginning of after hours, and then a fade, and now we're below the daily highs, and I entered it anyway knowing that. Just like I said, just greedy. The ego takes over a little bit of FOMO, and I was expecting this short squeeze, which I actually got, but these squeezes happen at 4 o'clock in the morning, as you can see the time kind of down here at the bottom. So 4 o'clock in the morning, and I know I'm not going to be up at 4 o'clock in the morning, so this is actually, a strategy I should probably just leave behind if I'm not going to set in limit sells and things of that nature. And what happened with PMCB, why it got crushed and now I'm down more than 50% on it, is that they got an offering for forget how many million shares at $5 a share that they took. And that's just something to keep in mind if you're a new trader. That's the sole purpose of biotechs being publicly traded. They're on here to raise money and do offerings so that they can get cash to fund their trials of their drugs and everything that they're trying to develop. So they try to inflate their prices, and then, once their prices go from, $3 up to 10, then they find a big offering, sell 7 million shares or something like that at $5 a share. And then those investors get theirs for $5 a piece and just sell them all at 8. And that just brings in so many, it just crushes it. And so that's why I'm stuck holding this. Like I said, I saw the red flags in it. That's why I took such a small position. but ultimately I shouldn't have entered it at all. But it's a learning curve. It's important. If you're not earning, you're learning. That's the main thing in the stock market. So learn from every loss. And this is definitely one that will stick with me, not to swing biotechs. So that is my one trade today, was Microsoft. And then, like we went over, GRNQ was another watch of mine that ended up failing. But that was my Friday today. Thank you all for tuning in to my first trading video. If you've got any questions about any of this, definitely reach out, comment. I'd love to, talk about trading with any new traders, experienced traders. Definitely good to, talk to other people, bounce ideas off of each other and things of that nature. So I look forward to hearing from, anybody that sees this that's a trader, and have a good one. Thank you.